Hello and welcome to week 3 of the Road to London with Paula's Run Club with me, Paula Radcliffe.
And me, Christopher Thompson.
And it's flying by already, Thommo. This week we are going to chat to Georgie Bruinvels, who's an expert exercise physiologist known for working with the Lionesses and with US soccer teams as well. I'm going to really delve into kind of how you can support your immune system around the training as it ramps up. And I think basic things as people are starting to build up their training are learning how to monitor how well you are recovering from workouts and just from general everyday life through those winter months. What do you use to track yours, Thommo? I use a ring to track my sleep.
A ring?
The Aura ring I use to track my sleep. There are lots of different things out there.
I have heard of that, and I've heard it's good for certain things. And I think Georgie will talk a lot more about the kind of things to look at. But I'm probably a bit like you in that I was a runner before a lot of gadgets around, and so I had to learn kind of the hard way, but the more natural way around things that registered what's overtraining, what's this and that. Without now, there's a lot of science and a lot of information you can get through monitoring tools, but very simply, and I kind of touched upon it a bit with Georgie, is that training and life is tough. It's just distinguishing the difference between what stuff that you need to listen to and what stuff you can actually ignore and be tough. Because we live in a world where, on the one hand, you've been told marathons are hard or life's hard, get on with it. And then there's other times where you go, if you ignore warning signs that actually are more draining, you can actually dig a hole. And so I kind of use this, roughly speaking, this brain fog kind of example where if above my shoulders I'm not thinking clearly, I'm irritable, I'm not sleeping great, and just the kind of general day-to-day things are quite difficult to do, like just almost become annoying, like putting the bin out, you're just frustrated rather than proactive. They're the kind of things that tell me, hang on, I'm a bit more depleted. Whereas when you're training hard, you're tired, but but when it's a good tired, you're almost, your body agrees with it more. I don't know if does that make sense. You your body agrees with that fatigue rather than you're rebelling against the fatigue.
And I think you make a really, really good point. I mean, I used to just go back to before gadgets. All I would do is take my morning pulse before I got out of bed and use that as an indication. But the point you made about learning what is noise and what you need to listen to and respond and react to, I think is a really, really good point. And the only way you really learn that is by getting it wrong a few times, isn't it? And probably at this stage in the marathon build up, it's better, would you say, I would advise erring on the side of caution. So if you go out for your run, I mean, maybe put in the 10-minute rule that we've talked about. If you go out and after 10 minutes, you're not feeling better, the little niggle that you were feeling hasn't worn off, then bin it, go home, have a rest day and see how things respond to coming back from that, rather than pushing on through that. As you learn to know your body better, you might be able to gauge more what you can run through and what you can't run through in terms of fatigue and just muscle tightness and things like that. But in the beginning, it's better, isn't it, to err on the side of caution?
No, it is, especially, like you say, especially at the beginning, because there's no need to take risks. And I think the other thing to think about is sometimes when you're thinking about fatigue and you're trying to work out how you're feeling, and you feel like you'll feel a certain way, I think sometimes it's a good way to look back, or how long have I felt like this? When was the last time I felt really good? And when you actually look back, and that's where it goes back to the training diary, and you think, well, today on Saturday, I really feel like I'm in a funk. And you look back and you go, actually, the last time I felt good was Tuesday. The number of days you've kind of felt like that can kind of give you an idea of, hang on a minute, I probably need to give myself that level of TLC out the other side, and the things you're talking about. So I think it's kind of useful sometimes to think back, when did I feel on top of myself? And as long as it's not like weeks and months ago, and you haven't been digging, then you've got room. And I think at this point, you certainly don't want to spend 2 or 3 days ignoring things. Just be, give yourself that chance, and like you say, 10 minutes is a good thing, but also giving yourself that day off here and there now is in no way going to affect your marathon performance.
Because at this stage you're really learning about what days in the week work for you in terms of training, and which days you might feel more fatigued, more tired, just because of other outlets in your life which are taking energy from your system. So just trying to find out, as we gradually build up the mileage, which day works best for your long run, which day might work best for your quicker workout type session, and try and kind of play around with it in that way, in terms of what works for recovery, for holding the family together, for fitting it in around travel, all sorts of things. And also at the moment, learning to cope with the colder weather, should we say, outside, and the wetter weather in some places, and trying to juggle and play with that, as well as keeping your immune system strong. So Georgie coming up is going to give us some great tips on ways that you can boost your immune system around that. And remember, of course, that 20-minute rule as well. If you can, within 20 minutes of finishing your run, get in. Of course you want to stretch, but start that refueling process, rehydration process the minute you come in the door, can really pay off dividends later on. So now it is time to welcome to Paula's Run Club, welcome back to Paula's Run Club, Georgie Bruinvels, exercise physiologist and researcher who has famously worked with the Lionesses and US Soccer. Hello, Georgie. Thanks for joining us again.
Hi, thank you for having me again.
So we thought we'd jump straight in at the moment, given we are in the midst of winter, and kind of keeping immune systems topped up. People are starting to ramp up that training and build towards the London Marathon on the 26th of April. So what are the best things that we can supplement with in terms of food as well as supplements? And so what can we do basically to support our immune system through these winter training months?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty big question, to be honest, because as you very much highlighted, when your body is working harder, so as your training is ramping up and it's cold outside, maybe, our bodies can become a bit more challenged. And that's because of multiple different reasons. So number one, the stress that exercise puts on our body can mean that our immune system has to work a little bit harder. So it works hard already to recover from exercise. That's like a natural, it's involved in that recovery process. But then alongside that, the cold weather maybe, or just the like natural day-to-day lives that we all live are always putting challenges on our body and on our immune system. So really, we need to, particularly right after training and actually going into training, ensure that we are as prepared as possible to look after our bodies. So, for example, right after training, and potentially for up to 2.5 days, so 72 hours after training, if you've trained hard and or if you've done a race, so maybe in your marathon block you might do a half marathon or something like that, our body can be or have a slight suppression in its immune function, and that's largely driven by one of the stress hormones that's called cortisol. And so what the, I guess, key priorities are for you to make sure you're eating well, you're hydrating right after you finish, you're getting warm as quickly as possible. If it's cold outside, you're making sure you're getting dry if it's been raining as well. And do everything kind of around your life and around training as best as possible to support yourself. Alongside that, in the cold weather, quite a lot of viruses can live better. So like warmer conditions. So for example, coronavirus, warmer conditions can kill off viruses, whereas in colder conditions, viruses are more prone to kind of living and functioning. So there's that added stress as well, or added potential risk alongside the changes in humidity. Often it's lower humidity when it's colder, so then that can mean that it's actually easier again for viruses to spread. So there's lots of reasons why our bodies can be a little bit more at risk at this time, and actually there's probably about 10 others that I could talk about too. But really, like, the key things that an individual can do is make sure they're fueling well, both going into training, right after training, hydrating as well as possible, making sure they're getting lots of sleep. So ideally more than 7 hours sleep, up to 9 hours sleep if possible. And we also know things like psychological stress can challenge our immune system as well. So trying to balance all of those factors. Then to your specific point around maybe considering certain supplements or specific foods. So I always would advocate for a food first approach. It's definitely the best thing that we can do, and it's the healthiest thing. However, there are some areas where supplements may be worth considering. And one particular supplement is vitamin D. Now, I think there was some research I think it was conducted between 2020 and 2022, looking at UK biobank data, and around 40% of UK people are or have a suboptimal vitamin D level. Now, vitamin D is absolutely fundamental for our immune function. It's also very important for other things like our bone health, etc. But it's very hard to absorb vitamin D at certain times of the year. It sounds really complicated, but ultimately it's all about the sun and the rays associated with the sun, the UVB rays, we would say. So typically from October through to March, maybe April, supplementing with vitamin D tends to be advised for most people. I would always say have a blood test first, but I know that's a luxury that many people can't necessarily achieve. So I would suggest considering supplementing with vitamin D. Often a daily supplement would be helpful.
That's what I was just going to ask, whether you would advise the daily dose, because I know that, for example, here in France, when the kids are growing up, the pediatrician will recommend the big ampoule that you take one in November and one in February to kind of boost it for somebody who, I guess they're thinking about children who can't think to or don't want to be tied into taking a supplement daily, but you would recommend a daily dose rather than one big drop.
Daily is typically like better absorbed with some of our athletes, because like exactly the same as with children, remembering these things can be challenging. So we might say a weekly dose. It really depends on who they are in the situation, but ideally daily. And it is best absorbed with fat. So it's a fat soluble vitamin. So ideally with a fat source. So maybe if you're, I don't know, if you have eggs for breakfast, great, have your vitamin D then. Or if you have oily fish for dinner, great, have it then. So I would advocate for that. And then alongside that, I guess there's numerous different micronutrients that it's just important to kind of have in mind that you want to have in your diet. So things like vitamin C, vitamin A, zinc, they're all really good for your immune function. And I mean, really, and it sounds so complicated just thinking, oh gosh, what contains vitamin A? But really eating the rainbow, as we always say, is just such a good way of ticking that box. So whether it's having plenty of fruits and vegetables, or having like, if you do eat meat, having dairy products, if you're not having good vegan alternatives, but really eating a variety of foods to ensure that your body is getting like hits from multiple different angles. And the only other thing that I would just say is really important, and we're learning more and more about, is your gut health. And for overall immune function, like having a good healthy gut is extra important. And I think with athletes and runners who are challenging their gut unfortunately regularly, just trying to include some sort of like probiotic food, so maybe some natural yogurt or some kefir or something like that would also be good.
Yeah, so let's just touch on that just quickly, soon as you mentioned it, because maybe just explain why runners do tend to need to look after their gut health a little bit more, because it's a lot to do with the bouncing up and down, isn't it, basically?
Exactly. So runners in particular, obviously are loading a lot, and particularly if you're doing a marathon, there's a huge amount of loading. And effectively, our guts have like a membrane, or there's numerous membranes around our various structures within our body. That's how the body works. But this can be challenged when we run, and effectively the like integrity of it can be challenged. That combined with multiple sources or amounts of inflammation that then gets produced within our body can result in your gut becoming a bit leaky, which effectively means that, like we talk a lot about inflammatory bowel disease or inflammatory bowel syndrome. It's not necessarily that, but it's more just that the gut becomes a bit irritated. And particularly often when we put gels in our body, or maybe if we're overhydrating or underhydrating, your gut can become just a bit angry, and that can result in poorer or suboptimal gut health, which can often be shown as having to go to the toilet regularly or feeling rather nauseous. Like there's numerous different things which how it can present, but particularly for those who are like loading a lot, it's really important to do a lot to or do as best as you can to support your gut health.
So that's probiotics. Can that also be, certain foods
Yes,
as
definitely.
well?
So
Yeah.
ideally, I would take a food first approach with probiotics. So something like Greek yogurt, some other yogurts do say on them like good for gut health. I'd be a little bit cautious, but generally like yogurt, dairy products are good. Kefir, kombucha. You can take an oral probiotic, but ideally fermented foods, like all of these things are really good. But the big thing with gut health is you want to have a hit of probiotics every day and ideally around the same time of day. So for example, if Greek yogurt is part of your breakfast, that's amazing. Or if you have kefir in the evening, that's amazing. But just trying to have that hit every single day to help yourself.
Brilliant.
So I was going to say, like, is there benefits to home growing some of these things? Because like kefir and kombucha is a bit of a buzz thing to make at home, along with apple cider vinegar. And it's just whether that's actually these things off the shelf in supermarkets are good enough, or actually if you really want to go like a star, you can't try and look to do things at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think first step is like doing something typically is better than not. I say that with caution, but in the main, I would say like having a source of probiotics is a tick. I like homegrown or home created would always be a preference. However, you can get some really good products off the shelf as well. And it's not realistic for many people to have time to grow that kind of thing. However, as you said, it seems to be on trend at the moment and lots of people seem to be wanting to do this. So if they do, then that's brilliant.
And just finishing, sorry, Thommo.
And I was going to say the apple cider vinegar stuff. I mean, is that in terms of that in the link with the things, how do you see that for helping gut health?
I wouldn't say it would be like my number one go-to, but I would say that there are some benefits to it. Like it would be good to include, but I wouldn't say that would solely tick a box of probiotics.
Okay. So that's more kind of for alkaline acidity in the body, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I actually can't say that would be something we would go to with our athletes particularly, but if people like it, then great.
Okay. Just to go back to gut health, obviously probiotics are the biggest factor.
Yeah.
Does pelvic floor have an impact? Do hormones impact on that for both sexes as we age or as we go through puberty? Indeed.
That's a really good question. Alongside gut health, I'd say another area that is definitely picking up more and more traction is pelvic health, and pelvic health in the context of understanding like the whole body link with pelvic health. Like I think in the past it was felt that just females have a pelvic floor and you only need to care about it when you're pregnant or coming back from pregnancy. However, now we very much appreciate that females need to consider their pelvic health throughout their lifespan. And hey, lo and behold, males also have a pelvic floor and need to consider this. Females are more likely to experience like leakage and pelvic floor dysfunctions. However, males still can as well. So definitely important to consider both sexes in all life stages. In terms of pelvic health and gut health, I would say there is a link between, so your gut is often very driven by your vagus nerve. So that's a nerve which is like from our brainstem. So it's actually, there's a very much, we talk about the brain gut axis. So they're very interlinked. And I would say your pelvic floor is very interlinked with them as well. So we know, for example, in times of stress, that can put one's pelvic floor under stress as well and predispose to having things like urinary leakage. I would also add that hormones can exacerbate this whole situation. So, for example, there are times in the female life cycle, whether it's around when you're on your period, whether it's when you're transitioning through menopause, where your gut health can be more negatively affected. And that is largely because of the kind of whole body changes that the hormonal changes are driving. So as we always talk about, hormones, both male and female reproductive hormones, so that's testosterone for males and estrogen and progesterone for females, they travel around the whole body. So as they change, whether it's through a menstrual cycle, whether it's through the whole life cycle, they have whole body impacts. And we know that both your brain and your gut and your pelvic floor are all very affected by these. So, for example, one of the key symptoms or kind of exacerbation of pelvic floor dysfunction symptoms we would see is like premenstrually or during menstruation or perimenopause, where in that window people may be more likely to experience urinary leakage, lower back pain, which can be linked to the pelvic floor.
Can I just get clarify what you mean by pelvic floor? Because I know you asked that, Paula. You do, in my simple, you do mean core? Your core kind of stability, or
partly. So it's basically, well, go on, you're the expert, Georgie.
So basically, so your core kind of sits around your, I guess, like the middle of your body, and then sort of underneath your core, sort of, to be honest, like around your sit bones, there's like this like group of muscle tissue, which effectively is your pelvic floor. And so it's sort of underneath your body, as opposed to like your core being kind of on top around like the front of your back, whereas your pelvic floor is more like centered around your pelvis and like at the bottom
it's
of
a
your
muscle.
pelvis.
Yeah, if you think about it like it's the tissue muscular basket that all of your insides sit in, that stops
So
it
how do
basically
you look
dropping
after
out.
that then? This isn't like an exercise thing. This is like a more of a nutritional thing.
No,
it's
100% exercise driven. Yeah.
Oh,
So
right.
it's like it's super important to ensure that your pelvic floor is working correctly. And so you should ideally be doing pelvic floor exercises, both males and females. And that, like, for example, if you need the toilet and you're holding it in, your pelvic floor will be involved in the holding it in.
So we need to do an episode on pelvic floor exercises.
Pelvic
Paula.
floor exercises, we do.
Maybe next week.
To be honest,
Maybe
most
next
women.
week we have someone on to do that then.
Maybe, because certainly most women will know about it, won't they, Georgie? Because particularly if you've had a child, because when you come back, you're given the Kegel exercises first thing before you can move into the rest. I know in France, I think I've probably talked about it before, but in France, they actually you go in and you do certain sessions on the computer with an insert where you're basically using your pelvic floor muscles to fly a little plane, fly a little butterfly. But just basic, and there are lots of ways online you can order, things that basically women can use to strengthen their pelvic floor.
Yeah.
On that, there aren't similar things that males can use. They just have to do the traditional exercises, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly no pelvic floor expert, particularly when it comes to male anatomy and physiology, to be honest. But know that, I mean, the focus is primarily on females, which is interesting because of, as you said, around pregnancy. But males, as I said before, can still experience dysfunctions. And the other thing which we're seeing more and more is people are, like any other muscle group, people are realizing, well, like, oh, wow, if I train this, like, I don't need to be pregnant or have had a child, but there's also benefits to be had, particularly if you're someone who might experience a lot of lower back pain or glute discomfort or something like that. And we're increasing these things, as I said before, like menstrual cycle symptoms, for example, lower back pain, very common. Actually doing some pelvic floor work seems to alleviate the pain. So I think it's like there's such an opportunity to strengthen this by understanding it better. And there are various apps out there that can help. But I think having a better understanding of the anatomy is important. And I would also say for strength conditioning coaches out there, before you start working with males and females, you should understand how the pelvic floor works and how it works slightly differently between both males and females to help actually train them properly.
So to Thommo's point, though, the core I mean, the Kegel are the pelvic floor are part of the core muscle. So if you're doing a good core circuit, you probably are activating your pelvic floor muscles without realizing it, aren't you?
Yes, I would say so, particularly if you're doing something like Pilates,
Mm-hmm.
where a part of that is, and part of the, like, I'm sure some of your listeners who do Pilates, when you have someone explain more about the pelvic floor, they'll think, oh, that's why I'm told to breathe in that way or kind of hold in that way or whatever. But it's actually interesting because often people talk about having a weak pelvic floor, but sometimes actually people can have a strong pelvic floor, or like they overgrip their pelvic floor and they can't release. So especially if you might be prone to some maybe nerve related symptoms down the back of your leg or something like that. Sometimes that's because your pelvic floor is actually overactive and you can't release it. So it's super interesting, and I think there's so much opportunity around it.
Do you know what? As well, with my biggest, it causes so many bad habits, like walking. I just slouch and I lean forward, and I do. It's like when you're sitting all day and you don't kind of wake things up again. Like since I've retired and I do a lot more sitting in front of a desk, it creates other bad habits, which then kind of exasperate the weakness around those areas. And it's like you just think simple 5 minutes will just, or like 5-10 minutes will kind of help switch things on and create good habits which help what you're trying to do. Like it's just the reason part of it, I think of it, I was walking to school, Theo to school this morning, and I was almost leaning forward, like, what are you doing? Like, get up, like hold yourself up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well,
Imagine the
that
piece of
ties so
string
nice.
pulling you up.
Well, that also ties so nicely into thinking about the pelvic floor, because the pelvic floor is also very linked to the diaphragm. And when we talk about diaphragmatic breathing, which is how, we want to encourage people to breathe really well, your pelvic floor and diaphragm kind of move together. So actually, like, improving your breathing can improve your pelvic floor, like, function. And I think a lot of us forget to breathe deeply, which is actually the way we can, get the most out of our like lungs and our body actually as a whole.
This, I mean, we we could speak to you for hours here. So I'm conscious there's still some big things I want to ask you. So apologies for jumping back to immune health, but I just wanted to ask you what kind of things can we look at to know we're doing a good job with that? Things that are good signs, because I'm conscious when we talk about it that we're suppressing our own ability rather than necessarily it's all about we're being exposed to more bacteria. I know we could be with temperature changes, but signs that we're going, what, we are doing well with this and we are doing the right things to kind of keep on top of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think both from an immune function health and an overall hormone health, like, key things are that you feel like you're recovering between training days, you're actually sleeping through the night. Like, one big thing that we see is when athletes are a little bit overloaded, they wake up a lot in the night, they're restless, their body temperature feels a little bit dysregulated. But if you're waking up fresh and you're feeling, I mean, you're not always going to be fresh, but you're waking up and you're like, okay, I don't feel too bad. I can do an easy run today, or I'm okay. Also mentally, like, if you feel motivated and in a good place, like, sometimes we talk a lot about fatigue being shown as like a lack of motivation. Also, not getting ill, that's a big thing. But if anyone measures their heart rate, whether it's at rest or in exercise, like, if your heart rate is fairly consistent and or in exercise it's not too high, or it's not higher than where you would normally want to see it, then that's a good sign. On the converse, if you're trying to do a hard workout or a hard session and you just can't hit the paces, you can't get your heart rate high, that can also be a sign that our body is just a little bit challenged. And then I think, other than that, I would say various like little things where you feel like you have a cut on your leg, for example, and it's not healing as well as it should, or if you have had an infection or a cough or something, it's just not going as quickly. Like, those are signs that maybe our body is just under a little bit of stress. But yeah.
So on that, Joe, just a couple of questions. So when you mentioned about heart rate, Can you quickly explain the difference between heart rate and, say, HRV overnight as a signal? Because I know a lot of the apparatuses, things like the Oura Ring and the Whoop, will use HRV now rather than your lowest heart rate.
Yes. I was just going to mention HRV as well, actually, as another thing to think about. So, yeah, we have multiple like physiological measures that we can use as physiologists actually to track our athletes or to track ourselves and see where we're at. Now, resting heart rate is effectively through the night. It's the lowest point at which our heart rate, when you get it off a wearable, it's the lowest point at which our heart rate drops to throughout the night. And you want your resting heart rate for you to be low or at its lower end to show that your body is fully recovered. If your body is stressed overnight and taking time to recover, maybe from a hard session, or maybe I don't know, you're just a bit stressed, or maybe you had a drink before you went to bed, like various things, an alcoholic drink that is, and various things can challenge this resting heart rate. So if it's low, typically that's a good sign. Now, if you are in a kind of fatigue type state, as I said, that can increase a little bit. But with your heart rate variability, this is a really interesting, relatively newly kind of emphasized measure. And this typically, I would always say, really just tracking it overnight is the only time to use it. You can use heart rate in exercise, but HRV I wouldn't use other than overnight and or when you first wake up. This measures the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Now, people get quite confused about this because unlike resting heart rate being low, you kind of want your HRV, or you do want your HRV to be high for you relatively. Now, the best way I describe this, because again, it is just really confusing, is your body's ability to respond to stress. So to almost acknowledge the stress, but then recover quickly from it. So really the measure actually is looking at the time between heartbeats and the variation between heartbeats. But I don't think people need to overthink about that, but more it's just demonstrates our body's ability to tolerate stress, I would say. And the interesting thing with HRV, and as a practitioner, where I find this so interesting, is heart rate or resting heart rate typically shows physiological stress and physiological recovery, whereas heart rate variability tends to have a psychological, or in my experience, I feel like it captures psychological stress as well as physiological and physical stress. And so I think it just is it, I would never say I would look at either particularly in isolation. I would look at them both together because I think they do serve a different purpose. But it is certainly interesting. And the key thing for everyone to remember, because I get so many people who get anxious because their HRV is very low or their HRV seems to be very high, is it's all about you and understanding what is your norm. And so with resting heart rate, like, you know, in the main, most people who are physically active and relatively fit will have a resting heart rate of under 60, certainly, maybe under 50, maybe even under 40. But from an HRV perspective, I've got very, very elite athletes with HRVs in the 30s and some in the 180s. So it really, really seems to vary.
What do those numbers mean? Sorry.
So this is looking at the time, the average time between heartbeats and the variation between heartbeats. So what the best way of describing it, okay, so say right now, Thommo, someone came into your room, maybe George came running in and screamed at you, and you had no idea that he was going to come in, and your heart rate goes really, really high, and you're like, oh my goodness, and you completely panic. And then your brain says, no, calm down, like actually it's fine, everything's fine, like nothing bad has happened, and you can calm your body down really quickly. So I always say it's the balance between responding to like real stress and then calming down quickly afterwards. If you can't do that, then your HRV is typically going to be it will be low for you. If you can do that, so your body can respond to stress and then kind of calm itself down, then your HRV is in a good place for you.
It's a bit like running reps then, almost.
Your heart's running the reps.
What I mean by that, in terms of if you're doing, let's say, 2400s off a minute, your ability to recover in that minute is a sign of fitness, and then the speed in which you can run the 400s. If the faster you can run is based on the speed in which you can recover, So it's almost like it feels like there's a comparison there. The response, if your heart responds quickly, it's a kind of sign of top. You're fit, but
Yeah.
also your ability to recover
Yeah.
and bring it down. Am I
Or
making
is
a
it
good comparison? It feels like I am, but
you kind of are in your head, and it does, no, I don't mean that. No, I mean you are. It makes sense because you've related it to something that you would see that as elasticity, right?
Yes.
I try, but
thanks,
is
Paula.
it more like elasticity? So like what I'm trying to say is I would see it as elasticity. Tomo sees it
Yeah.
as an elasticity in training, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like how well your heart can or your system can stretch and
Yeah,
Calm
respond.
and
down.
vary.
Stretch
Like
and
heart
respond,
rate
stretch, respond.
variability is really looking at the variability between heartbeats. So it's actually saying like, can there be a lot of variability? Because that's a really good sign of health, or heart health and actually overall health, as we said. And that's relative to you. We
But
can call it running reps for sure.
it is, yeah.
It's just that, yeah. It's just how I've kind of,
Yeah,
like
that's what I
Paula
mean.
said. It's
That's
just
all.
it makes
That's what I
sense in
meant.
my head.
But that's what everybody needs to do, right? Is to make
Yeah.
it make sense in their head, so then they can
Absolutely, yeah.
understand the data when it comes in and apply it for them. And I think particularly for females, something that I've noticed is my HRV will drop right before I get my period,
Absolutely, yeah.
and it's
I mean,
usually a good sign for me of when it's due.
yeah, I mean, obviously, I always want to jump into talking about hormones because that's just my bread and butter. But yes, absolutely. So we do see a decline in HRV premenstrually, so just before you start your period. And that's just a sign that our body is under a bit more stress at that time. Like that's perfectly normal. But also the exciting thing around that is that then shows that that's a window of opportunity to help optimize the body. We know HRV can be really improved by doing various lifestyle behaviors, various wellness things like having a cold shower in the morning that actually improves your HRV, doing some breath work or some mindfulness that improves your HRV. So that's a really good time to think about doing that. We also do see perimenopausally and menopausally, your HRV will also decline.
I was going
And
to ask because I have noticed like the monthly one at the moment, and I was starting to get a little bit concerned, is just gradually dropping.
yes,
So that would be linked
yes.
to the perimenopause.
I would hypothesize yes. Like obviously, I
Yeah.
probably need to look at your blood test, but the other thing is premenstrually, your resting heart rate also goes up a little bit. So actually, in the whole of the second half of your menstrual cycle, your resting heart rate kind of starts increasing a little bit, and then it comes down when you start your period. And that's a really good way for people out there to track where they are in their cycle.
And temperature, body temperature as well,
In line with
slightly.
body temperature.
Yeah.
Temperature goes up in the second half of the cycle, then suddenly decreases, and then you start your period.
So staying on hormone health, then I'm probably stealing Thomas' question here. For the men, is there a similar indication? I mean, there isn't a male menopause, but the same thing. Is there
Yes.
indicators that they can track?
Yeah, so with age for males, like you will likely see a slight decline in heart rate variability. But males do actually undergo hormonal changes. Like we talk about females being really changeable and all these hormonal changes, but actually every day a male is going through a cycle. So every day testosterone's higher in the morning and then it comes down through the day, then testosterone goes up in the morning and comes down in the day. And over their life cycle, hormones do gradually start to decline. And the likelihood is you will see a decline in HRV alongside that. I mean, obviously, if you're suddenly 40 deciding to start exercise and train for London this year, then you'll probably see an increase in HRV because actually exercise can improve HRV, and being overall like fitter and healthier, that's going to improve HRV as a whole. So the general trend with age is that it will come down, but you can do a lot to support it.
Did you have a question on that, Tomo?
No.
Yeah, I know, because I was just gonna lead into. So you mentioned a male who might suddenly decide to start training for London, say in their 40s, and we've talked about the fact that testosterone drops. Is there a small boost to actually a positive boost to exercise, starting exercise at that point that might actually boost hormones for male and female?
Definitely for males with testosterone, yes. Exercise can boost testosterone. Now, typically from around the age of 30, males' testosterone does slowly start to decline. Um, but exercise in specific types of exercise, it tends to be more like strength-based training can have little boosts or cause little boosts in testosterone for males and females, because females do have testosterone too, remember. Um, but one thing, I guess, just to consider when you're talking about signs of being in a good place versus maybe not in such a good place, like one of the reasons why people can feel more fatigued, or signs of having more fatigue, that can be because their testosterone levels have decreased a little bit, and that can happen when you're in a bit of an overtraining type state or an overload type state. That's just like natural, well, that's a natural hormonal repercussion. So
And
if you
so,
wanted to check that your body was in a good state, like measuring testosterone is one of the key markers, particularly in males, that we would look at alongside cortisol, which is the
I
stress hormone.
was going to say, at the risk of being cancelled and being in terms of being deleted off this, but there's a very clear sign for me if I wake up like with decent testosterone, which you can probably work out by my not explaining what it is.
But
But
that's really
that's
helpful as a
yeah,
tool.
no, it is,
yeah.
it
Yeah,
is, but
yeah.
I think you know what? It's funny. I was I forget the Radio One DJ many years ago, and he says It was like they were talking about signs that you're growing up or you're getting older, and he says you have to stand a meter back from the toilet. And I didn't know what he meant by that at the time, but it's like as I've gotten older, if I just have to stand back a bit, I'm like, okay, that's a good sign that I'm still healthy. I'm sure this will get deleted out, but that's fine. But
No, I think we're trying to provide
it is like,
information for people, aren't we?
no, it is
And talk
because it
about
is
all
like
sorts of things.
as annoying as it is, it is like little things. Like you've talked a lot of. I mean, we've known each other for a long time, Georgie. But you use very similar terminology, and I do have. I mean, simply put, like things like that, along with brain fog, like things in my head above my shoulders. If I'm not thinking clearly, if I'm foggy, they're warning signs. Because the reality is, your body, when you're training for a marathon, that's normal to be tired, to be challenged, to be stressed. It's the difference between what's stress that you need to be wary of and stress that actually is you need to like back off with. And that's why with me saying that and like the stuff you're saying is absolutely spot on for people. But
Yeah,
with
because it's
the
telling you
what
about
time
the
we have
warning
left,
signs.
can I ask you what really quickly, and we're not going to be able to delve into too much, there's a lot of buzzwords around creatine at the moment. And I just wanted to quickly ask you about that
Yeah.
what is it? Is it useful? Blah, blah, blah. It's not something I've ever really encountered in my life other than I assume it's in foods as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, creatine is certainly getting a lot of noise at the moment for various different reasons. So it has historically been used a lot in the like bodybuilding type spaces, or people who want to be super strong, maybe power lifters, even sprinters to some extent, people who spend a lot of time in the gym, because there is research that shows that it can really help develop muscle strength and power. But if we just step back, so it's a molecule that's made up of amino acids. And there's also a lot of chat around amino acids, peptides at the moment. Loads of people are talking about this. And it is now becoming more and more popular for people who want to boost both physical performance and mental performance. And I think that's why it's getting more and more noise, because there is some research that suggests that it can improve cognition and cognitive performance. It's also been shown that through the lifespan, it also has lots of benefits. And there may also be benefits around your immune state, so your immune function, but also around recovery from certain disease types. So just to explain it a little bit more, so creatine specifically plays a role in the production of energy within cells. And I don't want to get too molecular on you, but in effect, there's kind of 5 different reasons why people might think, oh, I really want to try taking creatine. So as we said before, for muscle growth and development, like with your typical historical case around bodybuilders. That's number one. Number two is we're also seeing the benefits around it for recovery. So some people take it with their shake after their training to boost their recovery. Some people actually take it before training to boost performance, because there is some research around performance as well. Then there's this brain and cognition I guess, idea or research around brain and cognitive function. It seems to be able to boost short-term memory, improve clarity generally, reduce that brain fog that you were just talking about, Thommo. Then there's also some research around it helping with bone and muscle strength and integrity, which particularly for if you're perimenopausal or for males going like with aging in general, actually it may be able to help with like that. And then also with your immune function, as I said. So there's numerous now different reasons why people are like, aha, creatine may actually be useful, not just for bodybuilders. I guess there are a few things which people still need to just have in mind. Like there seems to be real proponents of creatine who are like all in and, you know, really encouraging people to take it. But not everyone finds that it agrees with their stomach. So it can cause some stomach issues. It can also cause, when you first start taking it, a bit of bloating and weight gain. Typically that decreases very quickly, and that's certainly not for everyone. And that's really just because it causes water to be drawn into cells. So it's like a pseudo weight gain. It's not really real, but it can, some people just don't like that. And some people just feel like it doesn't necessarily always give them the benefits of all of the things I just said. So it's really individual. But I mean, I have athletes who were curious, wants to try it, have started taking it, but I also wouldn't say, oh, everyone should definitely take it. I think I would like to inform people on the benefits, potential side effects, which are very minimal. And then, yeah, leave it up to them. But it is certainly, there is a real case for people considering taking it, I would say.
Sorry. Just quickly and finally on that, if people were going to consider that as part of a marathon training block, would there be an ideal time of the day to take that? You mentioned before or after training, or would there be ideal other things to combine it with in terms of vitamins, minerals for optimal uptake?
Yeah, I think the biggest question is like why you're taking it. So I would imagine most people are taking it to help with recovery and or probably the other side effects like, you know, muscle and bone health or cognition or whatever. So then I would say taking it after training would be advisable, just to help with digestion and kind of supporting your gut really with taking it. I would say take it with food as well. So maybe you might have it with your lunch if you've trained, or breakfast if you've trained before work, although ideally you'll have eaten something before then as well, or with your dinner if you trained in the evening. But it is really important to remember to have water alongside it or hydrate well alongside it, because it does typically, as I said, like pull more water into cells, so it can increase your fluid need.
Awesome.
Okay. So if it's encouraging people to drink more, that's a good thing to do as well, bearing in
That's
mind
a
through
good
the winter
thing.
months, we are layering up and we feel cold, but we're still sweating. We still are losing quite a lot of hydration, aren't we?
Exactly. And going full circle to talking about immune function, like being really well hydrated is also important. And particularly, as you said, like is often forgotten about. People don't realize how much they're sweating when it's colder outside. But also it helps with like mucus production, and it helps to support the natural barriers within our body, whether it's in our nose, in our mouth, in our throat, to prevent viruses and infections coming into our body.
That just raises a key point there. So obviously the usual sign that we talk about if you're dehydrated is the pee test and how diluted or weak your urine looks in terms of how well hydrated you are. But my son did mention the other day that he felt like his mouth was thicker, like it was drier. That's also a sign of dehydration, isn't it? If the mucus
Definitely.
is
Yeah.
thicker.
Yeah, definitely. That's another good sign.
Okay, brilliant. Do you have any? I mean, I know we could keep going on,
No,
and we will ask you back again, Georgie,
yeah.
in the future, because I feel like off the back of this, I'm sure listeners will have a lot of questions. Could you ask Georgie this? Could you have her back on for this? So we'd love to have you back at some point as we get
No
closer
problem.
to the big target day of April the 26th. And thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, we say this a lot, Paula, that we could talk to our guests on and on and on, and this is no different. Georgie has just dropped so many tips, tricks, and explaining in such a way that's really informative and really breaks it down in a way that we can kind of utilise it going forward. But there's so much there that I just loved, and even for me, like, you know, I've learned some stuff there as the listeners.
Yeah, you're going to be doing pelvic floor exercises now until the cows come home, aren't you? Building that back up again.
Do you know what, the cows have
Mixed in
never
with
come
the-
home for me, so I don't know. So like I've never had a cow knock on the door, so the amount of stuff I'm still doing.
That's because you didn't grow up on a farm.
Well, this is true, but no, it's just, I think hopefully that people can, you know, there's a lot there. So I think my tip is to people is to try and take bits and not try and take everything. And I think we're trying to empower ourselves, because eventually things become automatic and we kind of take certain things for granted on a journey. But actually, sometimes, depending on where you are, try and just take one or two things. Some things you might already be doing, and don't feel under pressure to do it all. Because again, as you alluded to, Paula, sometimes you need to make mistakes to kind of understand. And it's this point that these are the top points where you can take this information on, that hopefully in 5-6 weeks time you think back to this conversation and go, oh, I feel a bit overreached, and just remember the kind of conversation, or revisit this episode again.
Yeah,
and listen
that's
back
what
to
I
it.
was going to advise, is maybe park this one, record it somewhere, and go back and take little bits from it gradually. As we mentioned with Georgie, of course, we will try and get her back on as well further down the line towards London. So please do feel free to send in any questions that you have, of course, to that WhatsApp number, which is +44 7564 747 914, or to Paula's Run Club at momentumbroadcast.co.uk, or on socials, and we will try and reach out and bring Georgie back on to answer some more. But it might be a good time just to think about some of your monitoring techniques, say through sleep, whether it is as simple as we talked about before, of just jotting down your morning heart rate, or whether you want to invest in one of the many, many tools out there to kind of track the quality of sleep, and indeed through the training as well, to be able to kind of get that complete picture. But it's a good time in the build up to start finding what works for you, because some people want a lot of details, some people want the basics, but having something in there, I think, is a big help, isn't it, at this stage?
No, exactly. And I think with these, thinking about all these things can also help how your week or 2 weeks look as a life in general, and where you could try and fit your training in and around. Because I think we sometimes can get a slave to that Monday to Fridays are work days, the weekends. But in reality, training, or certainly marathon training, can be whatever you want it to be, and wherever you can fit it in with friends, family, or around training partners, or whatever it might be. Or I know there's training camps where people will dedicate a week or two to being away, sometimes for London with warmer weather. Whatever it is, use these tools to think about when's the best time to train for your body, and not necessarily because it says Tuesday on the calendar. So I think that's a really good thing to think about, is when is your body going to be most ready in a week to do some of the hard sessions, and when's it's going to need to be a bit more recovered.
And building in that time away, as you said. I mean, Georgie talked about the importance of vitamin D. We know that's lacking during the winter months, just because we're not out there in the sunshine, or if we are out there and there is a bit of sunshine, it's freezing cold with it. So you tend to be covered up and your skin isn't exposed to get the benefits of that vitamin D. So planning in a little bit of a break away where you get to train in warmer weather is actually something that's going to support your immune system and your health, as well as psychologically being nice, just to get out there and run in shorts and vest for a little bit, and to kind of get a little bit of a reward and a winter break built into that training.
Well, she mentioned as well, obviously, when it's colder, things linger. like that.
Yes,
The
they
bugs
do.
they do hibernate that little bit longer. So again, you can, I don't know if this is an old wives' tale, but sometimes people with arthritis can feel a cold snap coming because they can,
Yes.
or animals can detect, and therefore
It's
when you look
damp
out.
for
Well,
me.
look out the door and you look at the level of whatever the weather's doing. It kind of will give you an idea that I need to be a little bit more mindful of my immune system. If it's wet and it's cold and it's windy, just think about that and think, hang on a minute, I need to be a bit more mindful because the conditions are going to put me at higher risk. So it's certainly now doing school runs as Theo's starting school. I'm very aware of the of what the school run temperatures are like compared to what I used to, and I tell you, it's pretty cold out there at
Yeah.
like at 8 a.m. It's
Well, I
pretty
think
nippy.
for the whole day, it's cold at the minute for a lot of runners. So yeah, taking that little bit of time to warm up, as we talked about, I think before, just if you do have lungs that are a little bit more sensitive, if you have any sort of asthma, then just warming up slowly with the mouth closed for the first bit, just to get your body gradually used to that cold area. And think about layers as well, even layers of gloves or hand warmers popped inside the gloves. And probably a good time to mention as well that we do have at the moment this offer on from our friends at Wild Nutrition sponsoring this episode, and they are offering all our listeners 50% off 3 months, which is a brilliant way to kick off the year. Just a quick heads up on that. You need to head to wildnutrition.com/Paula to take advantage of that. And it is a great offer, isn't it, Tomo?
It is a very good offer. I do like the fact that we can team up with people like this, and they can offer really good rates and discounts to try these products, because again, they are very much around food grown energy support, which is what we need to feel armed to basically everything we're talking about, just feel empowered and feel stronger, and it does have a lot of essential B vitamins and what they do to hopefully make a big difference.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It's packed with those B vitamins. It also contains iron, magnesium, and most importantly, B12 to support energy production whilst also reducing tiredness and fatigue. And it's great for the immune system and antioxidant health, which Georgie talked all about as well. So important at this stage of the winter when you're starting to really put in the miles and you're taking a lot. You're asking a lot of your body, so you're helping to support it in return.
Apologies if you can hear George a bit upset downstairs. He's probably wanting some himself right now, but he's probably having his nappy changed. He gets a bit fidgety, but yeah, because again, with everything we're talking about, and this is where I don't know how much you are mindful of this. Like when you're doing hard training, you tend to try and spike your energy through caffeine or high sugary foods or anything that kind of helps kind of spike you to do that bit of exercise, but actually being level and being consistent is actually does win the day, and so that sustained energy through the day is a much steadier routine, and that's what these Wild Nutrition can help with, is helping you to stay that steady and consistent through a day and not spiking too much through caffeine or whatever it is you might use.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, should I say.
That is because Wild Nutrition believe that your body is wired to absorb those nutrients better from food. So all of their vitamins are this food grown. They don't add synthetic fillers or binders. It is just quality ingredients that your body actually recognises. So one more reminder of where to go for that 50% off the 3 months subscription and a free personal consultation, Tomo.
It's wildnutrition.com/Paula to get started. To repeat that, wildnutrition.com/Paula, and you can get 50% off for the first 3 months and a free personal consultation with a nutritional therapist. And it's somewhere you can go to feel the difference yourself. So start 2026 rooted in wellness. Terms and conditions do apply.
And now it is time to touch base with one of the athletes who we will be following all the way through on the road to London to that day on April the 26th. Welcome to Sophie Raworth. We can probably say a veteran of the London Marathon, right? I think your stats that you gave us were 14 places, 13 starts, and this will be your 12th finish, because we are banking on that you are going all the way there. You do, of course, own the 7-star, the coveted 7-star, and were one of the very first batch of people to achieve that 7-star. And I guess really we're touching base with you now to share where you are as you kind of embark on this double journey, right? Because you have Barcelona first and then the London Marathon in April, and you're supporting Ella through to that as well.
I'm just going for London now. I'm just focusing on London. That's it. I'm not doing any other marathons. My marathon training starts here, and it's good. I mean, I do run year round, so I'm always running. It's not like I'm starting from scratch. But my big thing this year is I'm coming back. I got injured, and it has taken me quite a long time to come back from that. And before I got injured, I was running kind of almost at my peak. So I was going around 3 hours, 3:30 in a marathon. And then I got injured, and then I really slowed down. And for quite a long time, didn't think I'd be running marathons again. So to be able to come back and give it a go is great.
And do you have a time goal, or are you going to run it with Ella, or are you going to go for it on your own? Or is that yet to be decided?
So I'm a bit confused by this whole thing, because I assumed that I would run it with Ella, and I just assumed that's what she would want. And I just assumed my husband would say, of course you're going to run it with Ella. He was the one who got me into running in the first place. And then when I sort of mentioned that quite recently, he looked at me and went, no. She's got to run her own race. I think that's because he thinks she's going to be faster than me, is really what it's about.
Oh.
So now I'm not entirely sure. So I think I mean, I'd love to run it with her, but it is quite hard to run a race with somebody, because you run at your own pace, don't you? And it's really hard, obviously, to run faster than your pace, and actually it's quite hard to run slower than your pace. So I don't really know. I think we'll just both have to train and see where we are on the day. I mean, I definitely want to go. I have this obsession. I get into London every year on Good for Age places, which is a brilliant scheme for anyone. It makes getting older a lot easier, because the older you get, the slower you can run. Although you still have to kind of go at quite a clip. So I am obsessed with getting my Good for Age place. And for my age group, which is 55 to 59, I have to come under 4 hours, just by about five or 6 minutes, I think. So as long as I do that, I'm happy. And I don't know how Ella will do. We'll see.
I think I'm going to put money on you pacing it better. And I guess if I was giving you advice, I would be saying that you're coming in with that experience and that knowledge of how your body feels in that first half and how to pace it, how to judge it. And that would be the biggest thing that you can share with her, as well as kind of rolling with it through marathon training, accepting that there are going to be setback days and tired weeks, and that's part and parcel of the marathon training. Are there key issues that she's come to you with so far? Because you're not training together, right?
No, because she's at uni, so no. She studies medicine, so she's really got a lot of work on her plate and doesn't have that much time to train with, student activities included. So I have no idea how much she'll be able to train, but I think she's actually a pretty good runner. We've done 2 races. You saw her when she ran. We did the Kielder half marathon, and I got to the finish line. You were there, and so was she. I thought I was running that with her, and within about, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile, she just sailed off past me. I saw her ponytail swinging, and I thought, okay. So I had that whole kind of crisis of, oh no, am I too slow? Am I getting too old? Am I too old for this? As my daughter sailed off into the distance. But I think she'll be all right. I mean, she's her big thing will be, training load. And I remember the first marathon I trained for, I couldn't believe how sort of sore I felt the whole time. And it's knowing, it's understanding, and that's what you get with experience. It's knowing when you're actually injured. And it's knowing when actually just it's load and it's your body adapting. And your body does adapt over time. But when you first do it, it's a bit confusing. So I think for her, it's going to be the load and just getting used to it. But she's she's a bit of a sort of mini me. She's quite disciplined. She's quite good. So I think she'll be quite good at pacing herself. I think she'll do well. But it's a funny one, because I'd love her to do well, and I'd love her. I'm not competing with her at all. And my ideal scenario would be that I can keep up with her. But I would, if she can go faster than me, I would love her to do that, because she'll do really well.
What, because you've obviously done a fair few, do you use the same kind of training markers each time, or do you kind of subtly change it based on life demands or where you're at with injuries, or what are you kind of copy and pasting, or do you kind of tweak it a bit?
I have an online coach. I've always had an online coach, and I'm a bit
Okay.
tick boxy. I just have somebody who tells me. Jo Wilkinson trains me, and she tells me what to
Oh,
do. You know Jo Wilkinson, I
how
know.
did I not know that?
I know you are.
Joe Wilkes and I grew up racing
I
together,
know.
and then we're in the same training group. Yeah,
So she trains me. She sends me a plan,
you're in good
and
hands.
it's quite sort of hands off in that she just tells me what to do week by week, and I just say I've done it. She can see I've done it, and I kind of know that if I do what she tells me, I'll be all right. It's as simple as that. And I think with marathons, the one thing I've learned very, very quickly, you cannot cut corners. And that's what I love about marathon days. You get to the finish line and you watch all these people pouring over the finish, and you know that they've done the training, because you can't do that. Particularly the people who've done really good times, you can't do that without doing the training. And so I just do the work. She tells me to do it, I do it. And I feel really bad if I'm like, today is my day off. I went to the gym, but it's my day off, no running. So tomorrow I have a sort of I can't remember what you call it, but I have to run 3.5 minutes fast. Then I get a minute off, 3.5, and I have to do that 8 times, and then that's that. And I'll just do it.
Reps.
Reps. That's what I'm doing.
And do you prefer to do that before you go into work, obviously, because we have to talk a little bit about, so you're obviously BBC Newsreader, you have set times that you're in there. Do you prefer to get it done before or after
Yeah,
work?
I like running in the morning. Sometimes I run, sometimes I go in the evenings, but mostly I like going in the morning. I like just get up and get it done. I take the dog with me quite a lot, and so I just sort of combine that with her. I just fit it all in, and it's sort of dog walk, training run. I just get it done.
So we haven't seen Luna before. Is Luna new? Is she a Christmas present, or
No, Luna,
has Luna been around for a while? We've just not seen her before.
She's lying here on the sofa. Luna is 5 actually. So she's
Oh
been
wow,
around for
okay.
quite some time, and she's a very accomplished runner. Loves running as long as we have a deal. So I take her out. She understands exactly what I'm saying. If I'm asking her to go for a run, sometimes she's a little reluctant, but once we get out the door, she's fine. And the deal is, she runs along, finds a stick, and then she'll carry the stick, and then she's actually just I've said the word stick, and she's just suddenly gone, what? Somebody mentioned stick. She will run along, and she carries the stick until I stop, and then I throw it for her. And sometimes I do that, and I actually give myself a little bit of a break. I might stop a couple of miles in, throw it for a few times, and then we keep going.
What is it about the London Marathon weekend or day that you kind of keeps bringing you back? What makes it so special, do you think?
It was the first one I did 15 years ago, exactly 15 years ago. It was the first marathon I did, and I was 42, and I thought I was too old to start running. And then I saw a girlfriend do it, and I thought, oh my goodness, she's done it. I better, maybe I can. So I gave it a go. And my first one was a total disaster. I collapsed. So I kind of picked myself up and went back again the year after. And I mean, it is amazing. The marathon's amazing because of all the charity runners. There are, I think, of all the marathons I've run, and I've done more than 20 now, there are more. The support on the streets is like nothing else. It's extraordinary. There are so many people. The noise is unbelievable. It literally is deafening. And so the support is fantastic. But also the thing that does bring me back year after year is this whole good for age thing, because it becomes it becomes a sort of badge of honor. And I've got to, it's funny. The thing I love about running is that as I say, I thought I was too old when I was 42, and I wasn't at all. And I got my best times in my early 50s. And actually running, you can still, if you work at it and you keep going, it's amazing what you can do. It's amazing that you can keep going and you can improve. And I'm sort of, I don't know, I'm slightly fighting that. I think if I got to, in fact, this year I submitted for my good for age. And somehow on the day, all my friends would text me, oh, I got in. And I got nothing. And I was refreshed. And I thought I hadn't made the time, because you have to come a little bit under the time that they set, because people apply, so many people apply. I got nothing. 24 hours later, I sort of contacted them and said, oh, I haven't heard, thinking this is the year. I'm too old. I didn't run fast enough. And I'd actually managed to block the London Marathon email address somehow. But the panic for about 24 hours, I failed to get it. This was
That's
the
a very
year that
dangerous thing to do.
I know, this was the year I was going to finally realise I was too old to be doing it. That does bring me back year after year. And it is a real privilege to run it. It's really difficult to get into. So, you know, if you can sort of earn your place, I feel I should do it, really. Boston was... I got rather put in my place in Boston, though, because in a good way, because it was really early on. This was 2014, and I'd run London the week before, and then I went out there on my own. And my friend, this woman I knew very vaguely from parkrun, Jackie Millett, who at the time was about 63, 64. I mean, she was 16 years older than me, and she had turned out done exactly the same. She'd run London the week before, and she and I ran together in the end. And we got to about 20 miles, and I was moaning and groaning, and I can't do it. And she looked at me, and I said, I've got to walk, you keep going. And she looked at me, and she just went, Sophie, anyone can run a marathon, but it's when the going gets tough that you find out what you're really made of. So you're going to keep walking, and now you're going to run, and we're going to finish this together. And I was just like, oh God. Okay, so she wouldn't let me walk, and we ran together. And she's extraordinary. She'd only started running when she was 57, and she's now 73, and she's run 230 something marathons. She's absolutely incredible. Wow. She's amazing.
Wow.
Anyway,
I think that is a brilliant point to wrap up on that advice from Jackie there, because that's really pertinent advice, actually, just to get you through it when it gets tough. Just remember, it is a marathon, and you've got to keep going through those. And I think those are great words from Jackie that I'm sure you've been back to in your head at many times in marathons since then.
All the time.
Thank you so much, Sophie, and good luck with the rest of your training. And we look forward to hearing from you all the way along this road to London.
Lovely to talk to you both. Bye.
Brilliant, as always, to catch up with Sophie and her words of wisdom. I do think those stats it was really cool, wasn't it, Thommo, listening to her talk about her first introduction to the London Marathon, where she didn't actually finish it, but it still obviously isn't a race that it means so much as it does to so many of us that have kind of trodden those roads through the London Marathon and keep going back and stay watching out for it year on year and just drawn back to it because of the magic of London. But also hearing about her journey through Boston and the inspiration of being one of the first women to go through that 6-star journey and motivating so many of us to follow in her footsteps.
I think that's the beauty of what we try to do, isn't it? Is we try to bring the stories behind the results and the finishing. That last sort of finish of any marathon is incredible, and the emotion there. But understanding the journey and the motivations and the highs and the lows behind those emotions is what we're trying to do, so that everything feels that little bit more attainable, a little bit more relatable. And she said herself that she was inspired by other friends to run, and I think she epitomizes just why running a marathon is so great. And she talks so well. Obviously her line of work is testament to why she's in that line of work on doing newsreading. But I think I just love listening to everyone's individual reasons and motivations and whys, and she'll be a fascinating story to follow, and hopefully her daughter will. It's going to be an interesting one. That it's all very nicey nice.
The battle of the Raworths.
Yeah, it's nicey nice now, but I feel like as we get closer, it's going to be like, what session did you do this week? I don't know. I didn't do anyone. I'm not telling you.
But I do think she qualified it beautifully, didn't she? Though, with the fact that, as every mother, she just wants Ella to go out and have a great experience and to love it. And I think that's bottom line what she wants. She would love to share it, but she will be sharing it anyway, because everybody who's out there on that day, on the 26th of April, running a marathon anywhere is kind of sharing that experience together. And certainly if you're on the streets of London at the same time, you are all sharing it. And that's what makes it so special. It is, of course, the event which raises the most money and breaks records year on year for money raised for charities and people getting out there and making a difference. Yes, for your own health, but also in aid of a good cause. And this message comes in from the British Heart Foundation. Every 3 minutes, someone in the UK dies from cardiovascular disease. That is another family left heartbroken. The British Heart Foundation invites you to join Team BHF to take part in some of the UK's most memorable events, from the London Marathon to the Cardiff Half Marathon and beyond. Whether you're looking for a new challenge this year or just chasing a personal best, there is an event for you. By joining Team BHF, you're not just taking on a challenge. You're helping to save and improve lives of so many others and bring us closer to the next research breakthrough. Every step you take is a step towards hope, progress, and keeping hearts beating across the country. If the idea of a big challenge feels daunting, don't worry. BHF supports you all the way with free training plans, fundraising tips, and online communities where you can meet others who are on the same journey as you. Imagine the difference that you could make. Being physically active and exercising regularly can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 35%. And your fundraising could help save countless lives. It's easy to get started. Visit www.bhf.org.uk/events and find the event that's right for you. Join Team BHF today. Challenge yourself, inspire others, and help to save lives. Together, help us keep beating. And that is about all we've got time for. I think we've squeezed in a lot today, haven't we, Thommo? Huge big thank you to Georgie. As I mentioned before, we will revisit with Georgie on that road to London. We will, of course, revisit with Sophie, and we do have the first of our little tastes of what Harry is going through as you help hold him and his training partner Gab's hand through this training process. Thommo, how's it going so far?
Yeah, good. Ironically, we had this week, there was a mini kind of had to take an extra day off. And again, it's everything we're talking about. It was like, there's no need to push things. We moved the long run or longer run of the week from Saturday to Sunday, and all in the world made sense again, just in 24 hours, which is a good sign, based on everything we're talking about. So yeah, it's monitoring, it's fun, and everyone's enthusiastic, but it's January. We go. Let's be enthusiastic in April. Yeah, so yeah,
exactly. I mean, has anyone noticed on that how many more people there are in the parks when you go for a run? So it's a lot busier on the trails, on the walking paths, on the running paths this time of year, because so many people are like, okay, I need to get out there and get more active after Christmas. No?
Yeah, I saw something today where apparently around this week, the second week or whatever it is of January, is when the most New Year's resolutions stop.
Yeah,
like there's
that's
a
not very
spot.
good, guys. Come on, we can keep longer than that.
No, exactly. So everyone at Paula's Run Club, we're going to see this through. But you're right. That initial enthusiasm, and I feel like this is with anything in life. It's like you have the initial enthusiasm, and then there's always going to be a small dip. And if you can get through that dip, then it becomes like a regular motivation factor. So all those people out there that are running and filling the roads and the parks, and all those people running, let's hope that they're still there. In if they can get through to February, the likelihood is the drop-off rate will probably reduce significantly once you get through into February. But yes, I have. I see, while I've sat here, I've seen loads of people around where I live running past the window. It's great. Yeah,
no, it is. It's really, really good to see. And that is, afraid, all we've got time for. Just a quick reminder, of course, of that WhatsApp number, +44 7564 747 914. The email address is paulasrunclub@momentumbroadcast.co.uk. You can, of course, get in touch on socials. Thank you to all of you that are doing that. Quick reminder that the shakeout, which drops every Thursday, of course, does now include the honours board in that shakeout as well. So if you're looking for that, that's where that has disappeared to. You haven't forgotten about it. We have just bumped it over there, so we will still be including that. Drops every Thursday, main podcast on a Monday. Thank you so much for listening. It has been a Momentum Broadcast production, and we will see you next week.
So long. See you later. Take care.